What we'd love to see is have this breakout, kind of retest, make sure that it's really structured and standing on top of this previous trend line or previous flag. And if we kind of could correlate that as well with this former support line, I think we could see this blast off really nicely, which is exciting. So that could be, if it goes all the way down there, you're looking at a 100% move.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of WagMe TV. I have a great one for you guys today. We are talking Raydium, ticker RAY. Definitely doing some interesting things in the DEX and liquidity providing space. So we are really excited to kind of cover what they're doing differently, kind of the outlook for the project, and just our kind of general takes around it, give you guys a good breakdown of what's to come with the project overall. Again, this is not financial advice. So if you are going to look into these and invest your own money, make sure you're doing your own research. This is for entertainment purposes. So with that, I think we're going to dive into a little bit of background and TA to kick things off.
So Raydium, what is it, right? It's an automated market maker and really a liquidity provider built on the Serum Decentralized exchange, which we've talked about in the past. What's really interesting about Raydium specifically, and we'll get into some of the actual user experience with Soham in a bit, but it does have that first mover advantage as an AMM within Serum. So it could be really integral for Solana here moving forward, which is really exciting, especially after the run that we've seen in Solana throughout really the last year. So just diving in really quickly into the chart itself, something we were talking a bit about last week was actually this bull flag that was starting on the Raydium chart. What's really interesting is we've seen this actually break out, which is really, really exciting. It kind of came down, almost touched these support lines, broke out of that bull flag or bull pennant, whichever you prefer, which is really exciting. What's really interesting as well is from these highs. Oh, let me take this. From these highs, we actually retraced pretty much exactly 50%. So 50% retrace is very common in the space, which is wild to see it work so perfectly with kind of this bull pennant that we're seeing as well. So right now, fairly bullish, which is really exciting. What we'd love to see is have this breakout, kind of retest, make sure that it's really structured and standing on top of this previous trend line or previous flag. And if we kind of could correlate that as well with this former support line, I think we could see this blast off really nicely, which is exciting. So that could be, if it goes all the way down there, you're looking at a 100% move at the very least back to the recent highs that we've seen. So really, really awesome stuff. That said, this is pretty minuscule from where this was at one point. So when we talk about some of these coins, it's really about stacking them for, a larger bull market down the road. I mean, you are pretty far off of these all-time highs. Of course, you have some resistance zones throughout that. But if Raydium is something that you believe in, which is what we'll get into in a minute, why we're bullish on it, you could really start stacking some of this coin and see some really awesome returns. I mean, even from here back to all-time highs, you're looking at over 1,000%, which is pretty crazy to see. So, of course, that's kind of the bull case for this. Of course, you want to make sure you are tracking some of these support lines as well, because if it does break down from these support lines, it could get a little bit ugly. So, of course, as we always talk about, it's a super high risk play. It definitely depends a lot on Solana as well, which Solana then depends on Ethereum. Ethereum depends on Bitcoin. So there's a lot of different layers to that. But it's high risk, so ensure you have a pretty tiny allocation in regards to the remainder of your portfolio when you're looking into plays like this. But really exciting stuff, and I think Sia is going to go through some of the DeFi llama stuff. So when we're looking at DeFi projects specifically, we know there are a couple areas that are important, right? TVL, or total value locked, volume, and then making sure they have growth and adoption and some of the key areas that we've looked into from a metrics perspective in the past. So Sia, you want to take over?
Yeah, let's pull up some charts here and hop into some of the TVL and volume numbers. Overall, we're going to start from a Solana perspective, just looking at Solana as a whole. I think one interesting thing to point out before we talk about Raydium specifically is just that we're finally starting to see somewhat of a consistent pickup in TVL in Solana overall as a project. I think we can kind of see that tick up right around October of last year. And I think that also speaks to the price action we're seeing, the all-time high of users in Solana, and obviously that's going to play well into Raydium's hands as well. But I think one of the biggest things I want to point out here is that from a 24-hour volume perspective, Radium's consistently one or two. Orca and Radium are doing over 300 million in 24-hour volume consistently, which is well over 3 times what the next protocol is doing there in third place. So it's really, really picking up steam in terms of adoption and folks actually coming to the platform, which, as we all know, for DEXs, liquidity providers, that's basically the number one thing that you want to see happening. Volume coming in, users coming in, and it's actually being used to its full effect. Now, I do want to click in really quickly into Raydium itself as a project, so we can kind of look at the volume as well as the TVL here. We can see that rise similar to Solana, but I think something that's interesting to point out here is that uptick in volume here. And I know, Ev, I think you had some points here to make on some of these upticks as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think this really coincides with just the move to Solana for DeFi. I think we've heard a lot of chatter about people being very interested in the Solana DeFi projects and how maybe we've seen a little bit of a switch coming from ETH. And so, yeah, it's been in the last couple of months that you've seen this huge uptick in volume, and I think that goes along with exactly what you're saying, Sia, where you're starting to see this activity on chain that you hadn't seen before for probably a couple of years with Solana, and Raydium, specifically. So yeah, I think it's super exciting. In just zooming out on that chart, we're still pretty early to this volume and to this increase in TVL. I think you could see this recent uptick in Raydium price and say, hey, maybe I'm late on this, but it's still very early days, and if this is going to pan out like Zoe, and I think we all believe could be, potential Uniswap for Solana, then this is very early days and it has a lot of room to run. So yeah, pretty interesting to see that recent uptick in volume there.
Absolutely. And I think too, it's great points there, Ev. And I think it's also interesting to call out that, Raydium in terms of a TVL metric is just under 10% of all of Solana. So, if it's already having success at 10%, imagine if it gets up to 20, 30% of all Solana volume. I mean, I think, or value locked, I think that there could be some opportunity there from that perspective as well. And the amount of demand that they've had coming towards the protocol. Any other points, gents, on this?
Well, I'd love to hear a little bit from Soham on kind of the user experience of the system itself, but it's just interesting, right? I feel like we've talked about a lot of DeFi protocols in general. Just the competition is fierce here, and people are very non-committal in this space. So if once you start getting steam, you see people really roll in. So the more volume that comes in, the more users that come in, the more developers that come in. It's all kind of like this chain reaction. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, with that massive spike in volume, it correlates specifically, like directly with the massive spike in price as well. So you've kind of seen it taper off. Of course, as we saw on the chart, it's dropped 50% since those highs. So it'll be interesting to see if that volume can continue to go up and rise. And I'll feel like it'll correspond really nicely with the price points as well. But very fierce competition in the space. Of course, Uniswap was and really still is the best. So it'll be interesting to see what Raydium has under its sleeve to kind of pull out to actually take some of those users, take some of those developers away from the other competitors in the space.
Yeah, that point on competition is really interesting, and I think it kind of ties into exactly what I wanted to talk about, which is kind of like really getting to that the answer of like, why has Raydium taken off and like maybe some of the other dexes haven't, right? As you mentioned, it's obviously a fiercely competitive space. At this point, basically anybody can spin up their own dex, so why is everyone coming to Raydium? And I really think this plays into 3 reasons I would say that I'm bullish. Number one is the user experience on Raydium is really, really good. One of the things that stands out about Solana is obviously the speed and the cheap fees and everything. But Raydium is just, when you go on there, DApp, it's an extremely refined, very good design, in addition to being very fast and very cheap and very simple to use. And I think that's like the number one reason why it's picked up a lot of steam, and I think why it'll continue to pick up steam. The second reason I think to be bullish on it is if you're just simply bullish on Solana. And so there's a few different ways to play that, right? Like if you're just purely bullish on Solana, you can obviously just hold Solana as a part of your portfolio. But with potential for even more gains, what you could do is you could hold ecosystem tokens within the Solana ecosystem. So what you end up seeing is you can see this on Ethereum too, where if Ethereum goes up 10 or 20%, you'll see Ethereum ecosystem coins, for example, Uniswap or something like that. The main dApps, the main DEXs, the main protocols on Ethereum end up going up even more than 20%. Maybe they go up 50, 60%, maybe 100%, right? And so you can have that same thesis as it comes to Raydium, where if you're really bullish on Solana, and Solana you think is going to like 2 or 3x, in a situation where that happens, you could see Raydium do multiple X's on top of that. So I think that's point number 2. And then point number 3 is meme coins. Honestly, if you look at meme coins and you look at you pull up the main liquidity pools, the highest volume liquidity pools, the most profitable liquidity pools in terms of 24-hour fees, 24-hour volume, most of these are meme coins, right? GME, the good old GameStop meme coin that just launched with another like dog. It's literally dog with hat. That's literally what it is.
Always about the dogs, man.
Yeah, Myro, another dog meme coin. Win, another meme coin. So AMC, look like basically all the coins on Raydium that are like totally popping off and getting a ton of traction and volume have been meme coins, at least in the last 24 hours. And I think that speaks to the moat that maybe they have created for themselves, where they're kind of, if you want to be the hub for trading meme coins, that could lead to a ton of adoption and a ton of traction. As we all know, meme coins have the potential to basically defy any and all expectations, literally go to the moon. So that's another, like, I think third reason that probably people don't really factor in, but something that I think could really be bullish for Raydium in the future.
Awesome. Well, I think that does it for us on Raydium. Definitely let us know in the comments what you're thinking, if you're bullish, if you've heard of it before, and obviously like, comment, subscribe if you have gotten value out of it. But we always love hearing from you guys. So until next week, WAG me.